Oh, this is a good one, folks. You're going to love this one. So when I read this one off, when I read this one, I can't help but think that this is a guy who's probably a professor, probably an engineer, something like that, where everything has to be just perfect, like cha-chung, cha-chung, cha-chung. Everything just rolls perfectly. And anytime there's any sort of emotional upheaval in their life, they can't handle it. They can't handle it, you know? And it scars them because they're just not used to dealing with emotion on any level, let alone emotion that might be negative and directed towards them. They just can't respond and they hold it in until they blow up. This is a situation, I think, that's like that. So he says, I'm a 40-year-old male and I'm unable to forgive my wife who is 39. I can't stand being in the room with her. Long story made short, they've been married 20 years. They've got elementary age school kids, and he's weighing whether or not he should get a divorce. So let's see what this is about. So he says, about a year ago, I was out running errands. My wife was asleep. The kids were playing. It was a Sunday. She finally woke up at 11:30. She called and asked me where I was. I shared my location. I was in Home Depot or next door at the diner eating. I was 30 minutes away. She demanded I come home right that second, basically upset she woke up and I wasn't home. I've been up since 6:30 that day doing errands, exercising, getting the kids settled. I left out at 10 a.m. Kind of like, I've been up, I've been working, I've been productive, right? He says, I take care of the kids mainly because I have a flexible schedule. My wife works part-time. I make 2 times more than her also. Sounds like a little snot, doesn't it? Well, they take an hour to get home. Okay, that's an interesting. What took you an hour to get home when you were 30 minutes away? She starts calling, he says, yelling at me, saying I'm worthless, and if I don't want to be around the family, she's going to take the kids and leave. Ever since then, me knowing how family courts are, I felt like I'm living with an assassin. She has the target on me, and she's just waiting to pull the trigger. A little overdramatic. I told her numerous times her statements and threats that day highly affected me. I've been to therapy, and I've told my therapist. See what I mean? Just can't take the drama. Just a little wave, and he topples, his bolt rows over. He can't handle it. He goes on to say, my wife, my friends, and parents all told me I need to get over it, and I'm being sensitive. Obviously, my wife was just upset and apologized, they say. Even my therapist said she apologized. Why isn't that enough? You're asking us why that's not enough? Either the apology didn't seem sincere, or you just can't get over it. It hurt you. That little call hurt you so bad that the apology just isn't enough. What is she supposed to do? Right? Buy you a new car? I mean, scream it from the hilltop? I mean, really, why don't you accept the apology? He says, well, it's been over a year. I'm still not over it. Everyone, including my wife, are acting like everything is great. We just took a week vacation in February as a family. I was there, but I feel like I can't even openly speak to my wife anymore because battle lines have been drawn. He's the emotional one, really. He says, am I the asshole for holding my wife's statements a year later and unable to forgive her? I'm acting like everything is fine. To avoid interacting with her, I took a second job in the evening after the kids get home from school and finish their homework. So she just thinks I'm busy, not avoiding her. Excuse me, newsflash. She's smarter than that. She knows that you're working these jobs just to avoid her. She gets it, all right? Nobody's that stupid. And then he says, edit, our kids are elementary age. The kids basically have their own floor with a bedroom, bathroom, and playroom. My office is next to their bedroom. And I have our house wired up with cameras everywhere but our bedroom. Okay, so how's that going to help when they start a fire in the kitchen for some ungodly reason and you're 30 miles away and she's asleep and didn't know that you were going to be gone? I mean, how's that going to help? He says, I have a phone system in our house that our kids can direct dial us anytime with a push of a button. Yeah, give me a break. My wife has worked part-time since our kids were born, but I can control my hours and schedule, so that's why I provide the super majority of the childcare. I always wake up early, usually 5:30 or 6. I go to bed about 11:30 or midnight. I have a couple jobs and I run a family business. I said I ought to earn my wife 2 times, but that's just for my 9 to 5. All in all, it's more like 4 to 1 or 5 times what she makes. What what does that matter? I mean, does that mean that you're like super important? He says, when our kids were way younger, I often took them with me to conduct business. I don't as much anymore, but they come with me to my second job most evenings. Last spring, when I started leaving them home to run around in the morning, honestly, it was more like fall of 22. My wife typically won't wake up unless she has to work. Getting up on a non-work day is between 10 a.m. to noon, regardless of the day of week. She goes to sleep between 11 and 3. I wanted to talk to a lawyer, and two business associates said they won't give me the name of the lawyer because I'm overreacting. You think? I talked to a couple of people older than me, both male and female, and they all keep telling me I need to move on and get over it. You think? I have a whole deck of cards to play before I call my lawyer. My buddy, who is 55, hung up on me when I asked him. He called me back a week later and said he would drive me to meet with a lawyer if I still wanted to. We live in a large metro area, but a small, affluent suburb. The type of place that everyone is well connected. Now, why is he telling this? I took a vacation with my buddy last year and we ran into my neighbor in the airport. By the time I returned home a few days later, people at my kids' school knew I was out of town and knew my buddy's name. I normally walk the same route every day with our dog. I had a foot injury and I couldn't walk for 2 weeks. I was in the local pharmacy and then some random lady asked me if I was doing okay, and she hadn't seen me walking and she knows what time I leave for work based on when I walk by her house. LOL. So she threatened to leave me several times. We've been together almost 20 years, but I always felt she's just acting out or blowing smoke. She put our children in the mix with this threat. I can admit she hasn't made a threat like that since last year. I think she knows she overstepped big time, but I can't help but feel I'm going to get ambushed one day. Oh, you're like a little flower in the park that's so beautiful that you're just worried that someone's going to come along and step on you and crush you. Get over it. Also, I went on a couple of websites of divorce lawyers in our state, and they have calculators on them for alimony and child support. If she pulls the trigger on this, I'm losing big. We do have a post-nuptial agreement that a lawyer created. I even talked to a buddy about renting out a studio out of a building he's constructing, maybe to just sleep somewhere else while I figure this all out. Everyone is telling me to either suck it up or pay for my freedom. My therapist in August asked me to point blank, do I still want to be married? I told him I don't know. But I did have some rough calculations on what that would cost. The number is so big, I don't even know if it's worth it, to be honest. He told me he was in a similar position 15 to 20 years ago. He still got divorced. He still had to pay. It's just money. He said he waited until his youngest turned 18, but he started planning his exit about 8 years prior. That's the only advice anyone is giving me. Just wait my wife out. So let me get this right. You went to a therapist, and he said the same thing happened to him 15 to 20 years ago. He still got divorced. He just paid. It's just money. And he waited till his son turned 18. What kind of a therapist is this? Is that like a low-budget therapist? I don't get it. I mean, that is a guy who probably shouldn't be a therapist. So basically what I said was that, okay, you left the kids with your wife who was sleeping, knowing she doesn't usually wake up until about 10 to noon, somewhere in there. She wakes up because you didn't say where you were going and kind of freaked out. She apologizes over and over to the therapist for doing that later on as well. You spend your days overworking because, as you said, to avoid interacting with her, I took a second job in the evening after the kids get home from school and finish their homework. So she just thinks I'm busy, not avoiding her. Like I said, she's got that figured out. She knows you're avoiding her, and you seem to keep that schedule anyway. And then you spend your spare time calculating what the divorce would cost you. So you're there emotionally. You went on a trip, but not really. Only you know if you want to stay married or not. But as I mentioned above, you're really just playing the game here. You're just kind of playing the marriage game. She apologized for that situation that hurt you so terribly. And honestly, your communication to her sucked. And it still seems to suck. I can only say that yes, you're overreacting. You need to weigh all the good and the bad. And keep in mind that people aren't always perfect little robots like you think they are. And you have to be able to live with that. There will be drama. There will be a little upheaval. I mean, you yourself has said things are good, and you seem to be the only blockade for that continuing. So it really comes down to, do you want to be married? I mean, get over the fact that this thing happened, and then she called you up yelling at you. I mean, who cares? Jesus. Who cares? I mean, that happens all over the place, every day of the week, all over America. Nobody cares. Get over it. God's sakes. So, I don't know, folks. You try to help some of these people, and other people have said things like, see a lawyer. Just see a lawyer. Know what your options are. You might be in better shape than you think. It doesn't matter that it was a dumb fight. What matters is that it broke your trust in her. Give me a break. It broke the love. It broke the love. You two are no longer a functional couple because you don't trust her. I mean, and then somebody else says, exactly. Oh, gosh. Someone else says, she totally disrespected you and created a ruckus. Even though you got up early, handled all the chores, and had a valid reason to go out, after totally flipping out, calling you worthless, she expects you to get over it and calls you sensitive. I'm surprised that the parents and friends and therapists are also supporting her. This is not a healthy behavior in a marriage. Well, there's another robot. You know, these are people that should be single, right? They can't handle anything. You know, these are the people that if they lose their grocery list on the way to the store, they just go home. I don't know, folks. Like I said, you can only try, right? So thanks for joining me, and we'll look for an update on this. Until next time.